The idea of Cartoon Network being removed from Comcast is an unsurprising one. Cable is sliding, Cartoon Network is sliding. This partnership is naturally going to come to some sort of diversion. But if you asked anyone, including me, from Kid Me 20 years ago, the big three, notably Cartoon Network being on cable, it was like, yeah, of course. Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, Disney Channel. Those were the big three. You would be incredibly surprised to consider the idea that one day they just wouldn't be there. But we are not in the age of cable like we were 20 years ago. And even 10 years ago when things were slowly starting to inch their way downward. Rather, honestly, for Cartoon Network, it was quickly snowfalling. We are at a point where Warner Brothers has done a pathetic job over the past, especially 10 years, in future-proofing the Cartoon Network brand. I talked about this almost 10 years ago on the Future of Cartoon Network video, and a lot of it has come to pass. Not all of my predictions, but just the general perception of what Cartoon Network would have to do. Because Cartoon Network even 10 years ago was significantly irrelevant to most younger audiences who had already moved on to YouTube and other apps. If you were on cable, maybe you were watching Nickelodeon or Disney, but even those are increasingly less and less relevant. It was the idea of leaning away entirely from cable, and the fact that Warner Brothers was so slow, so hesitant to invest in Cartoon Network as a streaming opportunity. Of course, they were on Hulu. There was Cartoon Network content on Hulu, but the lazy approach on Max to give Cartoon Network a hub instead of fully investing early in a Cartoon Network streaming service and backing that up with Toonami or Adult Swim within it, obviously age bracketed for younger audiences to not access it, it was incredibly surprising. There was a long period of time between 2013 and 2019 when they should have launched this thing, and they didn't. Cartoon Network as a brand slipped because there was nothing that was done to prevent it from slipping. And now that Cartoon Network Studios is no longer in its own home base, and now that Cartoon Network, the cable channel, is increasingly going to be further and further strayed away from people to access. I mean, once it's off of basic, I mean, at that point, what are you? In fact, the last few times that I've actually watched Cartoon Network are not from my house. It's whenever I have to go over to a hotel and it just happens to be on basic cable. Like, that's the update I get. So if it's not on basic, I will never ever likely see a modern Cartoon Network iteration. The idea, and there's some people that believe, like, yeah, cable will make a comeback. And I think everything that you see, whether that be from these major conglomerate media companies selling off or specifically selling fragments of their cable packages or cable collections, channel collections, or, you know, here in this instance, you've got Warner Brothers welcoming a separation of, you know, not having something accessible for younger audiences. It's a sign of, it's an obvious sign that this is not a place that is getting more attention, but getting less attention. And again, this is all at the fault of a brand that does not know how to look forward, how to even look at itself presently, and it barely does things in the right direction. Congrats on Superman, Warner Brothers, but beyond that, when it comes to Cartoon Network, it has been an absolute waste over the past 5 years, especially for the creators that work there. And I will say, the new Gumball news and the new regular show news and the new Fosters and all of that, it should be on Hulu now. It should be outside of Cartoon Network. It should not be on that channel. That was always the question mark, was, okay, if ratings were declining 10 years ago, what is happening here? And what's happening here is they're finally making the shift that they should have made several dozen, like so long ago, which is Cartoon Network as a familiar animation powerhouse, outsource it, to not the production, even though Hanna-Barbera Europe is where most of the content's being made, but outsource the releasing to places like Disney Plus or Hulu, or even if it comes to Paramount, which, screw Paramount, but congrats on South Park getting that $1.5 billion deal. But long term, Cartoon Network is it is what it is. It's an irrelevant brand, and it's all on the company that owns it because they don't know what to do. It's disappointing. We should be getting better than this as fans, obviously, but there's nothing optimistic, really, outside of the content to produce. And, man, and then you saw, obviously, Checkered Past faded. I mean, that's where it's like, okay, well, it was a great attempt, and there have been many great attempts, but, you've got to get out of the box. That's always been the difficult thing for Cartoon Network, is getting out of the box, and they never really have. And it's on Warner Brothers, but you've got to go where the audience is, and they're just not doing it. So, yeah. See you later, guys.